Regardless of what the gig is, you know, as I said before, I'll make sure that I'm thoroughly prepared. So now when the phone goes and it's possibly a show or something that is a little bit out of the comfort zone of, you know, the rock, jazz sort of arena or sessions, something that involves playing with an orchestra and some singers, those things still freak me out a bit, but I still tend to go for them by asking for the music first and a copy of the CD way in advance, so then I'm prepared. Again, with any project I do, I ask for the music, whether it be on CD, MP3s, whatever, way in advance, so I can relax, listen to the music, make charts, totally prepare myself. So I'm engulfed completely in that set. So whoever I'm working with, no matter how big or small, I'm always listening to their set in the car. You know, when I'm making breakfast, it's on in the background. I try and make sure that it's around me the whole time, so I actually feel it, breathe it, live it for that whole time. Because if you don't, then I found in the past when I've been lazy, again when I was younger, you don't do that preparation, you set yourself up for a lot of pitfalls that come later on. And certainly talking to a lot of pro musicians over the last 10, 15 years, they've all said it's the same thing. You know, you have to prepare. But yeah, that's an interesting question because obviously as a session player, which I sort of regard myself as, I'm often in different situations where I don't love the music, and sometimes I don't even get on with the people that I'm working with. You know, you hear the horror stories of bands being together for 25 years and hating each other, and it does go on. But when I was gigging with a dance act called Black Box for a little while, we did a lot of rehearsals and some gigs. I wasn't really into the set, but I got something out of it because I totally immersed myself by listening to the tunes and thinking what sort of euphoria the people out front are going to feel when they hear Ride on Time and Everybody and all these sort of songs, and they're just going to go crazy. So it doesn't really matter what I do and, you know, whatever. I've got to get into this, and they wanted me to dance, and originally I was, oh, don't dance, you know, because I was playing congas and percussion. And in the end, they couldn't get me off the stage. I was going crazy. And talking to the DJ, one of the Italian guys, there's two of them, and some of the other DJs that were on that night, it was a 90s dance night, when they were talking about modern dance music, we were in a green room watching some stuff on the box, and I guess Ride on Time was similar to what they are now, these things we were watching, these sort of tunes. And I said to one of the guys, why don't you make a tune like this? It just goes do it, you know, kind of like the stuff you do, but with all this like really obvious stuff. At least yours was first when you did it. What do you think of this? And he said, I can't do it. He said, I'm watching these videos of these young people and these DJs who are out earning way more than us. He said, but I don't love this sound anymore. And he said, you have to love what you do. And I've heard this from jazz musicians, rock musicians, but for some reason, because it was a DJ, I was a bit like, what are you talking about? You know, you're not a musician. It's such a rude thing to think. But it was interesting, you know, because I didn't mean it nastily. You know, I was a bit like, wow, you know, but that's a bit moralistic and a bit, you know, for someone who's made so much money out of dance music, you know, as I say, there's nothing wrong with that. I've done it too. But it's just funny seeing how he couldn't cope with the 20 years difference between what had changed. And he said, I've gone to the clubs, I've hung out, I've met some of these guys, he said, but I don't like what they do. And he said, if I can't love it, he said, you can't do it. Which takes us back to what we were just saying. And it just shows you've got to find something in what you do that you love if it's a project that isn't your own. You've got to find something in it. If you can't, you're better off probably walking away from it than staying with it. Because in the end, you won't want to leave the house to go and do it, or your hotel room. You won't want to go and do it. And that brings all negative things. You might drink more, eat more, be a bit later for rehearsals, and that's all really bad. You may as well walk away. But my ethic has always been to try and find something, because there is always something in everything that I've done. Every project, if I had the CDs and little videos and bits on the table now, there'd be something. If someone said, why did you do that? I'll tell them why, and I'll try to make them hear it and see why I did it. It's not always financial, it's a musical thing.
So keep pushing yourself.
That's the thing, you know, and I think I've always respected artists that do that, even if sometimes they fall flat or people say, oh, it's not as good as the last record. Well, at least they've tried to change it. At least they've tried to move forward. I think that's better than just staying in the same place all the time.
What are the key things that you need to do, well, no matter what you're practicing, whatever style it might be, what are the key things that you need to practice with?
That's why I'm laughing. Well, the key things that I practice. I'll start again, don't worry. You've got big feet.
Wow.
You know.
You've got long feet. So you can stick them out on the camera. If I can't. Yeah, that's very pointy.
A bit clownish, isn't it?
Yeah.
A bit like It, that film with Stephen King. What do I practice? It depends on what sort of practice I'm doing. If I'm just practicing for myself, practicing technique and moving forward and general musicianship things, then I make sure I keep a practice diary of what I do, and the things that I imagine I want to work on, I keep on my phone, on my notes on my phone, or I write them down. So when I get into a room, I can sit down peacefully and work through the things that I really need to work through. But a lot of the time, like when I did the DVD and stuff, but a lot of the time I find I've got to prepare for other people's gigs. So I'm learning their sets, and I've talked about that process already, getting into that. But I think if you don't spend the time, if someone comes up to you and says, hey man, do you want to do this gig, gives you the CD or the MP3s, whatever, sends them to you, you've got to sit down and you've got to make your notes and prepare properly. And that's what I find I do. I sit down, I listen to the songs, I prepare myself inside out, back to front, in every which way, to make sure I'm totally prepared for what I'm about to do. Because if I don't do that, then I'm going into a rehearsal room, or sometimes into a live gig situation, if you're sight reading, or playing with the band before, just straight into the gig. You're going in semi-blind, and it isn't the best thing to do. Knowledge is power, and preparation is everything. You can't prepare for a gig by half-heartedly doing something. So I make sure I pour myself into it and work as much as I can to get the best out of it for them and for me. Because if you do well, you get more work from people that have come along to see it. Then your number goes out to other people. It's just a cyclical effect. It keeps moving on and on.
Seeing the bigger picture.
Exactly, yeah. And as I say, sometimes I've taken gigs on that I thought, not really into this. But I've got into it. I've actually quite enjoyed it when I'm there, and I've enjoyed the music, and I've given everything, and I've got something out of it. And that's kind of like if there was a tree starting from the bottom, the little acorn of that wind band rehearsal or orchestra rehearsal, it's sprouted into a bit of a crazy tree at times, but it's still quite a broad spectrum. And I think some people that just want to be a jazz or a rock person or an opera, whatever you're into, that's good. But for my instrument, I think, as a drummer, you certainly have to expand and play other styles to keep working. I think that's the key, and certainly talking to a lot of drummers, they seem to agree, just to keep moving forward. And if you keep moving forward in those different directions, then it can only be good for you in the long run, really. Get more work out of it.